The War on Nature, the Realm of Nature. This is a photo I used to show people talking about the farming of an island, how coral would build up and all the sand would collect, and then eventually it'd form this surface area where trees could grow, which is different to what's underneath. Trees can't grow underneath in that kind of fashion. Sea life and plant life is different. But from this, you can see so much. You see all that sand on the surface and then under the surface. There's so much sand, and we already know where that comes from. Every desert used to be a forest, and that sand is the petrified quartz, the petrified sap, sorry, or the quartzes anyway. So, you look at everything else, it's like when we look at the landscape and stuff and we see all the debris everywhere, where did that come from? It came from the trees, basically. Whether it's a petrified or whether it's soil, because it's like the breakdown of the matter of trees and all that kind of stuff. Like composting and all these kind of things, we're familiar with that. So, like, where did everything else come from? We've got loads of rock. We know where that came from now. And so, everything else, there's not much else in a sense, you know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, clay, metals, and all these kind of things and stuff, but we can figure most of it out. Like, clay is likely to be loads of soil and ash mixed together, joining all these landslides and all that kind of thing. Like, so, I mean, it's like all this. There's so much dead tree of what I mean, like the remains of that fire, of what it caused, and the results of that and stuff. Like when you look at the painted desert, you can see the iron oxide and the copper oxide, sorry, and the iron staining on it and stuff, like like it also looks like where the flood were, so that's like what's caused all the layers of it and stuff. So you see, it's like it's showing you where like metal comes from there. It seems like basically from the remains of these giant trees and stuff. So what's under here? You know what I mean? It's like more of the same basically. But how far does that go? It's like the deepest we've dug is 8 miles, and that's like the rock gets so dense that we can't dig any further. You know what I mean? The drills are getting jammed and all these kind of things. So, so that takes me to as far back as I can go. This is all I can see. It's like there was just water. You know what I mean? The evidence of everything else, like the land masses and stuff, seems to be remains of the giant trees. So this is like as far back as I can go. I don't know where water came from as such, but in one sense, I've like seeing water as a very spiritual substance. It's like all the other elements. There's no foundation for them without water. How can fire exist without water? Oh, okay, we've got the sun. I'm not really sure what the sun is in that kind of sense and stuff, like, but that's like a different matter. It's like, you can't have fire without a landmass to have a fire on as such. Even if it's just a stick held in the air, it's still some sort of form of landmass. And we're using a stick as a reference. That's basically what the land masses are anyway. Whether it's a petrified stick and turned into rock or sand and all that kind of stuff. But so yeah, it's like this is where things started. It's like there were loads of water, and then there was sunlight, and the sunlight heated the water, created some sort of kinetic energy within it to give that inspiration for life to exist. It like opened that doorway in a sense, and I think like when we're thinking about things in spiritual terms, it's like there were no life in here at this point. It's just water and sunlight. So in the spiritual realm, it's like all that built up energy, it was like trapped in one area. So it's like when it had the ability to access this area, okay, it might have started slow. It's like, that first drop of rain in the ocean, in a sense. It's gonna once it had that access, it just became so abundant. It was like a downpour, and it's like, okay, say it were like some sort of algae, and it's like just really microscopic form of algae, which that was like the first element of life, in a sense. That first breath, that first touch, that first chance to feel what this place feels like. You know what I mean? That first experience of the realm. What does algae feel? Can it feel? Can it feel sunlight? Because like it reacts to it. You know. Um, can it feel like with any plant? You know. Can it feel you touch it? If it can feel sunlight, then there's no reason why it wouldn't be able to feel you touch it. It's like it's got a sensibility, in a sense. And like in Wing Chun, they teach that your primary sense is touch. So your eyes can deceive you. You do that reaction test where somebody holds a ruler above your hand, and you've got to be able to catch it when they let go of it. And your eyes deceive you. You don't see it quick enough for you to be able to react. But if you could feel when they dropped it, then you'd know. You know what I mean? That's how Wing Chun works in a way, because it's like it's a feeling art, in a sense. It's like once you've got contact, you can feel that movement. So when you're blindfolded and training, you're much more responsive. So then when it happens in real life, you're auto responsive. It happens much more quicker than you'd even expect, in a sense. So with a plant feels. You think about how roots expand and stuff, and when you look into a plant pot and you see how roots have gone everywhere, they fully explore that area. So what happened here with this algae, once it were able to experience life in one sense, it expanded its ability to sense in another way, and another way, and another way, in a sense. It grew and it expanded. I mean, we look at the amount of variety of plant life that there is today. It's abundant with so many different qualities and properties that different plants have. The different fruits they produce and etc. and stuff. And also, all the different chemicals, and every illness seems to have a cure when you look at different plants and stuff. So it's like the expansion of that plant life kind of thing. So yeah, I'll try and carry on. So we imagine this algae, it grew, it developed, and say if one of these was the original algae, and it carried on to like evolve, and it kind of like became like the mother plant, and other plants like spawned off it and stuff. Maybe even still connected to it, and or maybe completely separate. You know what I mean, and become their own plants and stuff, like as seeds develop and drop off and stuff. But it kind of carried on expanding. It's like its growth, its experience in the world, how it could feel. You know what I mean? It's no longer an algae as this. This is like one of the tallest sea plants, kind of thing. So as it continued to expand, we see like this. Pretend that this is underwater, and this is the mother plant, which it expanded. It wanted to explore everywhere underwater. It wanted to reach out and find the limits and boundaries of where it were. Like I say about the roots and the plant part and stuff. Well, I'm assuming that the water with the sun around it is depicting a melted area of the plane that we live on. And so beyond that area of warmth is going to be, it's going to be frozen up. So potentially that's what it's going to be like underneath as well. So eventually these roots would be able to find those areas, the boundaries of where it could exist and stuff. And potentially even the roots would be even digging into the ice and stuff like. But once it becomes so abundant, so expansive, how long it took, I don't know, but once it once it gained some sort of level of stability, it's like it'd be able to like reach out of the water and stuff. There's so many surface level plants, like lily pads and all them kind of things and stuff. So it's like, there's loads of ways that plants can absorb light and take advantage of its surroundings and stuff. But eventually, if it were able to develop a structure for it to build upon, then it'd be able to live in a different way, outside of water, outside of the buoyancy and how it can live in water in the senses and stuff. But yeah, it's just this continuation of growth. It's like the more it got to know its environment, the more it were able to expand further in its ability to explore and stuff. Like producing another variety of plants and all those kind of things and stuff. Example at roots. And you've got life and decay, death and decay, life and death, the cycle, the continuation of it. And this will have happened under the water with all the seaweed and algae or whatever else and stuff, all the sea plants and coral and it's continuously growing and dying, and it's like it's feeding itself as it goes along. Like I said about the apple tree and all those kind of things. So it's like it's self-sufficient, self-abundant. It's self-reproductive and all that kind of thing. It's just like showing how it just grows upon itself in that kind of way, It's like self-abundant and stuff. It's like the prehistoric times, I would describe everything to be really big and all these kind of things, like the insects and mammals and everything. The plant life, the abundance of it, like those giant flowers we looked at the beginning, and the giant leaves and all those kind of things, and fruits. The abundance of it, I just can't imagine it other than like it's an extreme abundance. It's like there's so much plant life. It would have been like it's so hazardful. It would have been like, I'll show you. And see, like this, you've got like plants like this kind of thing, like, and it's like how it unfurls and opens and stuff. It's got like this hole, you know what I mean? Shadows. But say if this were 10 times bigger, 20 times bigger, you know what I mean? You could fall down there, and then like, yeah, it might be really difficult to break through it and all these kind of things and stuff like. But if it's like one of these here and another one and another one and another one, and it's just like a massive forest of it, imagine trying to walk through it. It'd be really difficult. But it's like the amount of foliage and different types of plants and all these kind of things, the abundance of it. I don't know, it's difficult to show in it in ways and stuff, but I don't, you get some sort of picture from what I'm saying anyway, of basically the abundance of it and stuff. But I don't know. It's like it brings to mind movies like Little Shop of Horrors, you know what I mean, or like Jurassic Park or something, or some movies with, you know, like colour plant life and stuff like that, or so hostile and stuff. Um, Longest plant in world. It's ribbon plant. Hang on a second. I've got a better picture, I think. With largest plant has been discovered off the west coast of Australia as seagrass at 180 kilometres in length. Posidonia australis. Apparently it's as big as Wigan. I saw on one of the pictures. But it's only like a grass plant, but at the same time, like 180 kilometres, and it's all connected, just like the mountains, you know what I mean, which I kind of like was showing you. Second largest plant is a colonial colony of quaking aspen tree in Utah. It covers up to 3.6 hectares compared to the 20,000 hectares of the ribbon weed. Largest tree in India, the Great Banyan, in Howard's Botanical Gardens, covers 1.41 hectares. Kind of like scale and stuff like. Although this is only one certain perspective and stuff. That's a look at the grass plant, ribbon weed. This is another thing I wanted to mention. Like I showed you the underwater plant kind of thing in a sense. Like this, you know what I mean? This description, imagining that this is underwater and this is like the mother plant and all that kind of stuff. In the same sense, imagine we've removed all the midsection, so you can't see that anymore, just so we can like see what it looks like underneath, you know what I mean? Like having a clearer view. So we imagine that all this is water, right up to where the leaves kind of grow. And that'd like reference like the mountain ranges. And if it were to continue down here, all the branches coming off consistently, then you'd also see where the mountain ranges kind of are, in a sense. It's like they're not just on the surface, but potentially are throughout the depth of our Earth, kind of thing, like maybe even to the ice, you know, and is like the bedrock of where we live. And you know, all these leaves, all the foliage will drop in between the gaps, you know, fill it all up, and then, you know, like nowadays it's like you know, that's all you can find on Florida is the, you know, the sand and all that kind of stuff. It's the same there, isn't it? Rocks and sand, which is like the ocean floor as well. So yeah, put the all the branches back on, and that's more like where we live in a sense. In a sense, this is more of a idea of where we live. It's, imagine the water is coming to this level, and these are your mountains and continents. And this is an example of like underneath, and you have to imagine the rest of the roots and everything would still be coming out. But and then you've got giant trees which come off the continents. A bit out of scale, but but it's a working model. It's something that exists. I can reproduce and say that's where we live. But we cut the trees down, so we don't have that anymore. And it's all been burned, and now we live in an ash wasteland. The potentiality for this to still be alive is a question. We still have life. We still have plant life growing. So nature's not dead, you know what I mean? But is the mother plant? I'm not sure. It's a questionable thing. Because, like, could these roots still be alive, really deep in ground? Is there potential chance that we can heal those roots and are the giant trees growing again? There's a question about Reiki, earth energy. Reiki is quite potent, so I highly recommend it. I'm going to make a video on that at some point as well. But yeah, the suggestion of healing trees with Reiki, it might help heal the earth and all these kind of things. It's kind of like it's the direction we need to be going, and you know what I mean. Like with the title of these videos being "The War on Nature," then we need to turn all our resources towards nature to help it being part of nature and stuff. So that's kind of like the angle and narrative that's kind of like going on with these kind of with a map and model and stuff, where it needs to go, what we need to be doing and stuff. And this also fulfills that, because we've got all these fossils of sea life, like really high on mountaintops and stuff. So basically the tree grew and carried whatever were there with it, you know what I mean? And it's like, so I don't think the flood were this high, you know what I mean? Or maybe it were, but for the most part I don't think so. I have like speculated about a lot of the giant tree structures like being potentially some sort of sea plant life, like coral or whatever and stuff, which I may include it in a video at some point. There's another example. I believe it will lift it up, quite possibly trapped in between two trunks, like that plant I just showed you there. It's like you could have got trapped in between things like that. Say if you were wedged in between those leaves, and the pressure and springiness that's just pinning you there, basically, you know what I mean? Or it might have been so deep that you couldn't get out, and like this, it's like between two trunks, like they're like trapped in a valley, you know what I mean? And it's so high and slippery, or it just couldn't get purchased, and it ended up being squashed in between the two trunks whilst it were growing, and it's fossilized it like that. I mean, potentially, it depends. There's like so many different ways, and especially with that abundance of nature, it's like so many things that I don't know could have been just caught up in it, you know what I mean? I mean, also the such variety and such variety of like habitats, variety of life and habitats. It's like you have to have a perfect habitat to create life, in a sense. It's like this creature couldn't survive without the appropriate food for it, without the appropriate temperatures and alkaline water and all these kind of things and stuff. Like, there's so much involved in it. And so then like ducks in a duck pond, a completely different habitat. Things that live in the desert or the jungle, etc., and so on and stuff like. You know, I mean, before there were land masses, you couldn't have cats or, you know, I mean, those kind of things and stuff like. You know, any kind of land living creature and stuff. I couldn't say mammal. You got sea mammals, haven't you? This is a Asgard, or Midgard. That's where we are, unless that's referencing another part of where we are. But it's a representation of where we live. One of the older ones. It's got like Alheim. I think that's like the Elven world and stuff like that, unless that's one of the other ones. Some of the names are quite similar. No, I think that's like the Elven one, supposedly. With this Bifrost, rainbow which takes you from up there to down there and all these kind of things. These are supposed to be different realms of existence. Like in Buddhism, they tell you about like there's the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, the angelic kingdom, the demonic kingdom, and etc. For all the different realms and stuff like that. And this is their version. Is it Nordic? It's very akin to the Fey culture, because it's got obviously with the elves and all these kind of things. It's one example, Obviously, we're familiar with that one. It's got the tree at the bottom. It's got the gateway with the rainbow. It's got the great rock structure at the middle and a tree coming out of it. So, is it still alive? You know what I mean? Potentially. We don't know. We'd have to find out, wouldn't we, and stuff. And I might have contradictory information as well, to do with the Santa and stuff. I'm thinking about the North Pole. You got the gaps in the North Pole, and it's got like 4 sections. I'll get to the map in a moment and stuff like. But that's another example of like dead tree. You got all dead brambles and all the. It's really thick. I'm like walking along, and I thought I'm gonna have to take a picture because it's like, look how dense it is. It's like you can't even see the ground, and it'll quite deep. It's gonna like it goes down a bit, and then you know what I mean. But another example of it, how it could potentially make layers because of the density of it, like they've described like layers underneath our plane and all this kind of stuff. So then, like the idea of like the hollow earth and all these kind of things, could the tree have been so dense that it actually created layers, and then it even formed oceans because the ocean couldn't get further down? I don't know. It's highly speculative levels of looking at things in that kind of sense and stuff. But this is something I quite like. Pangea. This is something I never used to like, especially like when I believed it were a globe, because like it was like jigsaw pieces just moving around globe. You know what I mean? It's like, really, if these were going to separate, then like look at England and America. Say if America separated away from England, wouldn't it have just got caught under the ocean and just broken up into pieces? And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. But if it grew and then expanded, I mean, these would have been a lot smaller, you know what I mean? And then they would have got bigger as it grew, and it would have been more of a central, like, you know what I mean? And then expanding like that kind of thing. So it makes sense that that's how a tree kind of grows. Like when you cut a cross section of a stump and you're looking, you know what I mean, down on it, aerial view kind of thing. And then it goes to, well, that's the suggestion in that kind of sense. But still, it's got like the globe narrative behind it and all that kind of thing. Like, so there's another look at it. In way, I mean, it's not like I'm not seeing it as an entire one gigantic tree all as one and stuff like. Because I'm not really seeing evidence of that either. It's more like that first picture. We've got that, and we've got trees that grow on top of it. We formed land and then grew on top of it, rather than just one big tree coming out. Where are we? So, circle map just for consideration, because we have to consider it all. You know what I mean? I'm not really biased on that because I've not been that high before. I can't confirm it in that kind of sense, and I do see problems with different maps. But this is a fresh angle. It's a fresh way of looking at things. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. You got this, which we've seen this quite a few times, haven't we? Like I said, it's in these 4 segments. It's not that uncommon for a tree to do that in a certain way and stuff. And we've got this massive rock in the centre as well. It looks like it dwarves those mountains up there, but you got that big old map as well, haven't you? But then, like, look at that. Now, you see how it's got its rings that are going out, like that kind of thing. Like, these are the oldest rings, aren't they? They get younger as you go to the centre. So that used to be small, and it got pushed and stretched, and eventually, became even this far out. And as it continues to grow, it'd get even further out and become bigger and bigger and bigger. And new ones appear all the time. So if you look at it like that, rather than looking at the trunk going up as like, growing that direction, I'm thinking about it going an external direction. So I want to show you burls. And we were talking about burls. We've seen it a few times when I've been going through some of the research and stuff. And these are growths. So it's like a hormone reaction to do with some sort of fungus or something. It don't seem to bother the tree, you know what I mean? It's not like it's going to kill the tree or out like that. So we're like, it's not really, if we don't label it as a bad thing, you know what I mean? It's something that happens, I suppose. But if you consider that, if this is a hormone thing, is this the hormone which would trigger the tree to become a giant tree? I mean, if we look at how it's growing, if it's going to expand, these giant trees need a really strong base and structure before they can suddenly start to plume upwards. You know what I mean? So when we see burling, how it forms and stuff, like this is on a redwood, and look at how the base of the tree is like this. Loads of bases of redwoods have like this kind of bulkiness and stuff, like, and you got another one coming out there and stuff. And you get some really big ones and stuff. And you remember these? I've not showed you them yet. But the burls that I was talking about on the previous video. So this is a cross section of burling, and you got all these lumps and stuff. I'll go back to. You see how it lumps? You got a lump, a lump, a lump, a lump. And it just wants to like expand in all different directions.